Good afternoon and welcome to another COVID313 Coalition meeting for families and youth. And we are so delighted to have you join us today. My name is Jametta Lilly, and I am honored to be the CEO of the Detroit Parent Network. I'm a proud member of this coalition that has been taking and bringing trusted voices and information and love and support to you now, I believe, almost 30 weeks. And we're all in this crazy time called a pandemic and trying to keep ourselves safe, healthy, and informed. But we also want to celebrate. There's so much for us to celebrate in terms of our struggle and things that we are overcoming. And so today we have a really special program. Many of you know that this month is Hispanic Heritage Month. And we are so proud to be able to kick off this week and this entire timeline to be able to have some speakers and some music to remind us of the significance of Latino culture and its contribution to the world, and certainly to us here in the United States. So what I'd like you to do is make sure that you get comfortable. We want to make sure that you have our chat information. You have our text number, which is 313-288-2082. So hold on, we're getting ready to start. And so with me always to bring power and information to keep us connected is Christine Bell. Christine.
Thank you so much, Jametta. It's good to be here for the 30th week. It's amazing to think that we're even here when we didn't even know how long we would be doing this for. And
Absolutely.
So I feel really honored to have been a part of the coalition and to be a part of this town hall that has brought really important information to our families and to myself as well. You know, I am a mother of 3 children, and this town hall has been incredibly valuable for me. Again, my name's Christine Bell. I serve humbly as the Executive Director of Urban Neighborhood Initiatives, and again, a proud member of this coalition. We're translating the town hall to Spanish and to ASL, so we want to give folks time to get on the right line and get comfortable before we get started. And I am going to ask Christina or Cindy to please share the correct contact number for folks that need Spanish translation.
Si necesita traducción en español, por favor hable al 313-626-7440, 313-626-7440.
Thank you so much. And I believe that Julie is signing right now. So Julie, could you please share the instructions for ASL interpretation? Thank you so much, Julie. So we want to hear from you, like Jametta said. We want to hear your comments, and we want you to be able to chat questions that you have for our panelists today. So you can use the chat feature on Facebook. We've got folks there monitoring it. You can also text any comments or questions you might have to 313-288-2082. Again, that number is 313-288-2082. And we want you to stay with us for the next 60 minutes so you can stay informed and powerful. We've got some great panelists here today, and we've got some, we also have some fun demonstrations, and we're going to get our bodies moving today. If we're not able to answer your question today, we will get the answers to you by early next week, and all of the questions that you asked today will be posted with their answers on onedetroitpbs.org. Just a few reminders.
Jametta, Christine's frozen.
The important information.
Oh, perfect timing, Christine. Go ahead. We lost you in here. You froze in space, and but now you're back. Okay.
Great. Hopefully, I did not freeze.
No, you were glamorous. It was a great freeze.
Okay, good, excellent. That's what you go for in these Zoom moments. Okay, so for our experts, please remember to speak slowly for our translators. They want to make sure that they're translating the important information that you're sharing correctly. Also, please remember to turn off your cameras when you're not speaking to ensure that our ASL interpreter can be seen. And also remember to mute yourself when you're not speaking. Terry Whitfield is our timekeeper today. So keep an eye out on your chat because he will chat you your remaining time. And if you go over your time, you will see Jametta or myself pop up. And that is also a signal for you to please wrap up your comments so that we can take on questions and things of that nature. We will be having Q&A after each segment. So keep the questions and the comments flowing. We want to hear from you. I have the pleasure of bringing on our next person, and that is Cindy Gamboa, who is going to kick us off today. Cindy?
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy, and I'm glad to be back on with you guys this week. One thing that is really heavy on my mind is voting, right? Making sure that our voice is heard out and clear this election. But like, there's a lot of parents and students that I've been talking to and that are saying that they don't think that their voices count. But I'm here to tell you that your vote does count and your voice counts. They count at the ballot box, they count in our school board meetings, and they count in policies being made about our lives. It's up to us to show up en masse and make sure that our voices are heard. Many people today and really historically have tried to block the voices of Black, brown, and low-income parents. Don't let them win. We need to show up en masse at the polls, mass at school board meetings, mass in Lansing. We need folks to not be afraid that we're gonna vote them out if they don't listen to us. Please make sure that you're registered to vote. If you need support, please let us know in the chat below. And if you are registered and ready, make sure that you know what's on your ballot. You can go to ballotready.org or go to the 482 Forward website for more information. I'm also really excited that this month is Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're gonna be celebrating the diverse cultures of histories of Hispanic people like my own. And today we're excited to share new ideas, histories, and learning about the contributions of Hispanics to this country. Really the contributions to this country, the world, and Detroit. So I'm really excited to be here today. So stay tuned. We have a really good show in line for you. I'm gonna turn it back over to Jametta.
Thank you, Cindy, and I'm equally excited. And thank you so much for reminding us, family, our votes count. We can't talk about Black Lives Matter, community matters, change matters, unless we take that responsibility to make sure we vote. And so we're going to let you know every time we come together, ways that you can do that and to lift up the voices that are helping us make sure that we claim our power, which is claiming our future. But to help us really think about both the past and the present and the future, we're so delighted to have return with us is the Executive Director of the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation, none other than Angela Reyes, who is going to just give us a wide berth of understanding, if we don't know, about the tremendous diaspora that is represented when we think about the Latinx worldwide community. Angie, welcome.
Hi, Jametta. Thank you so much for inviting me to come today. And I am going to try to condense in a very short period of time a whole lot of information. So hopefully I'll get through it before Terry yells at me or Christine or Jametta come back and tell me to be quiet. So there's a good question about who are Latinos, Hispanics, Latinx, because we're an ethnicity that did not exist prior to 500 and some years ago. We are the result of this European occupation of indigenous lands and the transatlantic slave trade that occurred some 500 plus years ago. Next slide. So Latino, Hispanic, those are names that only refer to people in this country, in the United States, who come from at least 20 different countries throughout Latin America, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, and who kind of see themselves as the members of a group. It's an ethnicity, it's not a single race, because we are composed of many different races, including indigenous, African, European, Asian, Middle Eastern, and then a combination or blending of any number of those different things. So for instance, if you're coming from Guatemala, Guatemala is still majority Mayan, the population there. If you're coming from Puerto Rico, you are probably more a mixture of Spanish or Portuguese and African, although there's a much higher percentage of indigenous people than they thought, since they've been doing some of the genetic tests. Next slide. So these are just some of the faces of the mixing of the various people in all the different countries in Latin America who come here. So you can be, again, 100% indigenous. You could be a mixture, mestizo is what we refer to as mixed with indigenous and European. You could be Afro-Latino, you could be African and indigenous. And there are some folks who are a smaller percentage, but they tend to be those people in power, are those people still from Europe who are 100% Spanish or Portuguese or of other European descent. Next slide. So what do we call ourselves? We've still trying to figure that out. So back in 1973, the United States government was trying to figure out a name for this diverse population that comes from all the different places of Latin America. So they started using the term Hispanic. That also includes people from the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. So back in the 70s, some of us started to use the term Latino, especially in the West and Midwest, which kind of rejects the colonial imposition by the government and refers to people of more indigenous, who are indigenous to this continent, so Native and African descent, rather than focusing on the European part. There are also some people who you sometimes use the Latino with the asterisk to indicate both genders. Some people refer to Chicano, which is Mexican American, or Boricua, which is Puerto Rican, or Dominicano. So people also have other names for themselves. Next slide. A term that has been come up more recently has been Latinx, which is a gender neutral term used to refer to people from Latin America, and its plural is Latinxes. So for those folks who are using the term, just know that more than 75% of Latinos have never heard of that term. And of the almost 25% that have heard of it, only 3% actually use it. So we're not really all in agreement on what to call ourselves at this point. So if you say something, refer to a Mexican as Latinx, they may look at you kind of funny because they don't know what the heck you're talking about. Next slide. So I just want to give you a real brief history about how Latinos got to the US. Next slide. So first of all, I want you to know that not all Latinos are immigrants. As we say, we didn't cross the border crossed us. And you may be surprised to know that almost 80% of Latinos who live in Southeast Michigan were born here in the United States. And nationally, about 60% of Latinos were born in the US. So they're not new immigrants. They're US citizens born in the United States. Next slide. So bear with me if you know this history, but not everybody does. But this, prior to the Mexican-American War in 1839, this is what the border looked like. So you see that a third of the United States was actually part of Mexico prior to that war. Next slide. And so we hear a lot about, remember the Alamo? So the Alamo actually was about slavery. Back in the 1800s, Mexico allowed some of the white ranchers to move into the area of Texas with the understanding that they followed Mexican law. But Mexico had already outlawed slavery. And that didn't make these folks too happy because they wanted to be able to keep people enslaved. So that was why they fought the war with Mexico, to separate from Mexico so that they could keep people enslaved. Next slide. So as a result of that, you can see how the area where slaves were kept expanded significantly in the United States as a result of the war with Mexico. Next slide. And there's also some recent evidence that has been turning up that was kind of lost, that there was a significant underground railroad that went to Mexico. So not just to Canada, a lot of people also organized an underground railroad that went to Mexico, but we're just now uncovering some of that history. Next slide. I also wanted to mention Puerto Rico, because Puerto Ricans are US citizens. So there was a war in 1895 around that same time that was fought between the US and Spain over the West, what was known as the West Indies, which was really all the islands in the Caribbean. Next slide. As a result of that, Puerto Rico was annexed into the United States in 1898. So whether or not Puerto Ricans wanted to become US citizens, they were made US citizens, although they cannot vote in any federal elections, so have no representation at the federal level. And this was from an article in the New York Times in 1898. And you can see how the folks in the United States viewed Puerto Ricans as naked little children that they had to clothe and take care of. So very paternalistic, very racist perception of Puerto Ricans. Next slide. So this is a little bit of the history of Latinos in Detroit. So we've actually been in Detroit for more than 100 years. A lot of people don't realize we've been here this long. My family has been in Detroit for more than 100 years. And Latinos, particularly Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, were recruited to come to work in the railroads, the factories, and the beet fields in Detroit. That's pretty much at the same time as the African-American community was being recruited from the South to come to Detroit for the same purposes. So the community grew pretty rapidly, and we settled in Corktown, which a lot of people don't realize was the original settlement for Mexican and Puerto Rican community. And by 1930, there were 15,000 Mexicans and Mexican Americans living in Corktown, including my family, right? But then, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, during the Depression, there was this Repatriation Act. So between the years of 1930 and 1933, in a 3-year period, almost 14,000 Mexicans, many of them US citizens, were deported to Mexico. So if you can imagine 14,000 people in a small little community deported within a short period of time, the devastation that it caused in our community. Next slide. So this is kind of the population of Latinos just in the city of Detroit. This does not include the surrounding suburbs, but you can see where the population dipped to almost nothing in 1933, and then has been rapidly growing to a little over 50,000 in the city of Detroit. And our community has expanded from Corktown into broader Southwest Detroit, which goes roughly from the Lodge Freeway to the city border and from the river to West Warren. Next slide. A lot of people don't realize that during the urban renewal projects that also impacted the African-American community, it also impacted the Latino community. So you can see down on the bottom, close to the river on the west side, the area that was Corktown in Hubbard Richard around St. Anne's, which was where predominantly the Latino community lived, was also undergoing we refer to urban removal projects at the same time that really disrupted the Latino community. Next slide. So there were a number of different things. So you can see over on the left, Corktown, they decided they wanted to do light industry in Corktown. So actually, my grandmother's home where I was born on Bagley was one of those houses that was then removed, torn down. We also had the I-75 and the Lodge Freeway, which went right through our community, just like in the African-American community, and disrupted our community. And then on the right there, you see a picture of the original footprint of the Ambassador Bridge. And you can kind of see all around it were homes. which no longer exists because the Ambassador Bridge has been expanding its footprint every year since it was first opened in 1929. Next slide. So this is just a very brief overview of some of the federal laws that have impacted immigration, and particularly for the Mexican community. It's been a process of bringing people in and pushing people back out. And I'll go over this a little bit. Next slide. So you often hear people of European descent say, our ancestors came in legally. Why don't these people come in the way our ancestors did? Well, the reality is there were no immigration laws until 1882. So there was no way for the European immigrants to come in illegally. All they had to do was get on a boat and show up. Many of them who came through Ellis Island, they did have to wait for a few days and they put their name in a book and then they came in. So the way many people are coming in now from Latin America is very similar to their ancestors. They're just, people don't realize that there were no immigration laws until after 1882. Next slide. And you can kind of see in 1790, actually, non-white people were banned from becoming US citizens. So this red that you see in this chart represents immigration from Europe. And then the yellow was North America, which includes Canada and Mexico. So you see around 1920 is when people started being recruited from Mexico to come into work. But the predominant immigration in the United States up to that point was from Africa. From Europe. Next slide. And then after 1965, they finally banned racial quotas. So you start to see diversity in immigration happening after that point. So you can see that the immigration from other places like Asia, Latin America, the green and Central America starts to happen. And it's not until really around 1990 that you start to see the purple, which is immigration from Africa. So you can really see a change, and the immigration that's more diverse is very, very recent. Next slide. So while people were being brought in to work in the United States, they still were seen as commodities. So these are some of the images from 1920 when people were being brought up to work in Mexico, in some of the things that they had to go through in order to come across the border. Next slide. And there was also a history of violence against Mexicans, including hangings, which we know this history of violence is still happening. So as recently as last year, there was the mass shootings in Texas where 20 people were murdered, or somebody who was hunting Mexicans. So I think people have almost forgotten about it, but these things are still happening. Next slide. And then the Repatriation Act, which happened, which was considered an ethnic cleansing that I mentioned earlier from 1930 to 1933, where people, even US citizens, were sent to Mexico. Next slide. Then again, there was a pull back. So there was a 20-year period where there was bracero program, and bracero really means arms. So they needed people with arms to come in and work predominantly in the fields. So there were a number of Mexicans who were brought into the US to work as migrant workers. Next slide. But there have been a lot of abuses for the migrant workers in the bracero program. Some of these living conditions still exist to this day, which were pretty horrific, where people are living in very horrible conditions, and the housing usually was owned by the farmers that they were working on. Next slide. And then we had actually Operation Wetback. People have asked me, is that really something that the United States called it? But yes, that was a program of the US where they referred to Operation Wetback, where they again rounded people up who they had brought in previously to work in the fields, and then they were rounded up and sent back. And you can see it from that picture, the people were being put in cages back then as well. Next slide. So this was a billboard that was up. It was the Vocero program when you needed us, in Operation Wetback when you're done. So pretty much people were being seen as commodities to work in the fields and to perform labor that nobody else wanted. Next slide. This was also during the time when Cesar Chavez organized the United Farm Workers during the 60s and 70s to get better wages and living conditions for the farm workers. But you can see down in the right-hand corner that there's a move now to cut farm workers' wages, and you see the date on there, September 30th, 2020. This was yesterday. So this is still happening in our country. Next slide. And the reality is that immigration from Mexico has actually slowed down significantly in recent years. It's actually a negative immigration, meaning there are more people returning home to Mexico than are immigrating here from Mexico. More of the recent immigrants who are coming here are coming from Central America because of the horrible conditions that exist there, largely due to US foreign policy. Next slide. And so how do people get here? Especially coming from Central America, a lot of people travel across Mexico and into the US on the top of trains. And if you can imagine being on the top of a train day and night, how do you go to the bathroom? How do you eat? How do you fall asleep? People have sometimes fallen off the trains and been killed. So it's a really difficult road coming up. Next slide. And then once they get to the US, if they manage to get across the border, they have to then travel on foot through deserts. And there are a lot of people who don't make it. They find the remains of at least 50 to 100 people every year in the desert. Next slide. And they also have to deal with the vigilante groups who literally are hunting immigrants out in the desert as well too. And we don't always know what happens to people because it's pretty undercover. Next slide. A lot of people also don't realize that our US immigration policy has been largely written by private prison companies who are making money off of detaining immigrants. Was because they were losing a lot of their money because of criminal justice reforms that started to take place in the US. So they needed a new clientele. So this is why they wrote the new immigration laws where they're able to make money off of detaining immigrants. Next slide. Another question we get asked a lot is, why don't people just get in line and apply for legal status? Well, this is the line. This is actually the line for people who have a relative, a US citizen relative in the US. This line takes about 20 years to get through. And if you don't have a US relative living in the US, there is no line for you to get in. So the reason why people are coming the way they are is because they don't really have any other choice. Next slide. Another thing that people don't realize is that within 100 miles of the international border is considered kind of a constitution-free zone where the US Customs or ICE are able to stop people without probable cause and confiscate things like your cell phones and laptops. And that's anybody. And you can see from this map that the entire state of Michigan is covered within that zone. So if you get stopped by US Customs, you really don't have any constitutional rights. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, there. One thing that people don't realize is that Detroit is on an international border, and the Latino community actually is right smack on the international border with the Ambassador Bridge, and will now be sandwiched between two international bridges with the building of the Gordie Howe Bridge. So Border Patrol and ICE are in our community all the time. People are getting disappeared, families are separated. It's something that we have to deal with on a regular basis, where people live in the shadow of being separated all the time in Border Patrol. Next slide. We have had a civil rights movement right alongside other people of color. Next slide. What a lot of people are not aware of Mendez versus Westminster in 1947, this young lady who was Mendez, her mother was Mexican, her father Puerto Rican, and they filed a lawsuit. Actually, NAACP filed a lawsuit on their behalf in Westminster, California, which ended up declaring schools, separate schools, as being unconstitutional and being unequal. And one of the attorneys who worked on that case was Thurgood Marshall. So this case actually laid the groundwork for Brown v. Board of Education, which made it unconstitutional nationally. Next slide. We've also, at the same time that there were the Black Panthers, Latinos had their own group. So young people, the Brown Berets, who were mostly in the Southwest and the Midwest, who were fighting against police brutality. Next slide. And then on the east side, in New York and Pennsylvania and the Puerto Rican communities were the Young Lords. And these groups all fought, just like the Black Panthers, to educate their community, provide them food, and to fight against police brutality and for civil rights, and often fought with Black Panthers and the American immigration movement together. Next slide. There's also been a history of fighting for education reform. So there was a whole series of school walkouts in California and the Southwest in the 60s and 70s. And actually in 1974, we had our first walkout here in Southwest Detroit, where it was actually middle school kids at Earhart walked out for the same reason. And then they were followed by a walkout at Western High School. Next slide. So we're still fighting. We're still fighting for people's rights, and we're fighting together with other groups, with the African-American community as well, for equal rights. And we have not given up, even though we still try to struggle with who we are. One thing that we do know for sure is that our path and that of the African-American and Native American communities has been intertwined, and who we are as a people was changed irrevocably as a result of European colonization in this continent 500 some years ago. Thank you. Hopefully I didn't go over too much.
Angie, thank you. That was a powerful and necessary, not only history lesson, but linking all the pieces together. And I encourage everyone to please follow up, learn more. The history of struggle, la lucha continua, all over. We must stay focused and embrace and fight together. Thank you so much, Angie. We are going to move forward with our program. And consistent with our focus, we want to make sure that we are also celebrating culture. And so delighted to have join us now would be Dantes Jones. Dantes is with the Motor City Street Dance Academy. Dantes. So what we can do while John Taz is getting ready to pull up, let's move into the school updates, and then we'll come back for a real feel for dance from the community. And so always bringing us critical information from our school district. We're pleased to have Crystal Wilson, Superintendent for Communications, and one of our favorite people to help give us information that we need. Crystal.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Just thanks again to our parents and our students who are working with us during the pandemic to get back into the classrooms and in front of their teachers. Just big shout out to our teachers. I just wanted to highlight one of our heroes. We have an exceptional math teacher who has worked with the district for 2 decades. She's over at DSA. Her name is Mrs. Gibson, Calandra Gibson, and she's inspiring her kids, and she's working with them to get acclimated to Teams and Clever and the other platforms that we're using to provide instruction for our students who are online. So I just really wanted to give her a shout out and let everyone know that we are seeking nominations for teachers and staff members who are going over and beyond the call of duty to make this experience one that is less stressful and that are finding opportunities of, I call small opportunities of delight. So let's get right to it. I know
Crystal, I am so sorry. I've just gotten some background information that we are really over. You're one of the critical voices that we always need to hear. So if you just give us one more minute and then we'll get a minute or two from Sean Wilson from Charters. We appreciate you being able to work with us around the schedule. Go ahead.
Yep. So just hold on. So just hold on to the count day, because that's all I just need to talk about is count day.
Okay. Which means kids, families, get in, we need you. So also to bring us some news and some quick updates from the charter school community is Sean Leonard returning back with us. Sean, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, Jametta. Thank you for the opportunity to come back to share. Excited to be here to just talk about the teaching and learning that's been happening over the past month or so. You know, we have schools that are operating in virtual setting, as well as schools that are bringing students back into the building for a period of time. And it's been exciting to see the engagement of our students in these unprecedented times with learning. And we appreciate our parents supporting the teaching and learning of our students as we continue to transition to more in-person time with our students. We realize that looking at our benchmark data that there's been a significant what we call a COVID slide. And so we're working very hard to close that achievement gap as we move forward.
I'm almost shocked. Yes, that was a 1 minute update, Sean. Thank you so much. But seriously, we do want to have you come back. One of the questions that you please keep in mind, we know that you have been studying and keeping a track of the deaths and the illnesses. And so bring that information back to us. What's your next step as we go through October? Thank you so much, school leaders. We'll move forward in our program. And so we're really pleased to have now, we've been talking about health, but oftentimes we've forgotten the importance of nutrition to be healthy and to help us get past that. We're so delighted to have with us Shasada, also called Sadie, from the Henry Ford Community Nutrition Program. Welcome. Sadie, if you're with us, you can come on screen.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, great.
It won't let me. It just says you can't start your, okay, now I can start it.
Okay.
Hi, welcome. Okay, so what I want to talk about are healthy ways to get in more fruits and vegetables with your meals and snacks. But before we have that conversation, I want to talk about the importance of eating fruits and vegetables. So I know for children, they've often heard from adults, their parents, their teachers, and doctors and dietitians, fruits and vegetables are healthy to eat. But I want to challenge adults to go a little bit further in their explanation and really teach kids the impact that these have on their bodies, because they need tangible references as they're eating these foods. So if you could explain to them, when it comes to blueberries or grapes, they help to keep our memory sharp and help us focus. When it's green vegetables, they help keep our teeth and our bones strong. When it's red vegetables, such as apples and tomatoes, for example, they help keep our heart healthy. So as children are eating this, they can make the connection of why these foods are important. In addition to that, adults have to eat these foods in front of children to kind of pique their curiosity and to understand that not only is it important for me as a child to eat them, I see an adult eating them too. So even though certain kids may not like certain fruits and vegetables, it's okay. Like adults, their palate changes over time. So just give them some grace, be encouraged, and don't give up. So let's talk about adding in fruits and vegetables. So the common question that I always get is, how do I eat healthy? How do I get fruits and vegetables? So it takes a lot of mental energy that I find that are stressful for people. But here's what I recommend. Keep a variety of forms of fruits and vegetables on hand, as well as textures. What I mean by forms is fresh, frozen, or canned. They're all equally nutritious. When it comes to frozen and canned fruits and vegetables, you want to choose a no salt added as well as no sugar added. That way you get to control the ingredients that you put in there. Also, when I say textures, Keep on hand a variety of leafy vegetables, shredded, diced, sliced, because it makes the preparation of putting that meal together very quick. And we know people don't like to wait all day to eat food. You want it quick, right? So let me show you how to get started. So a smoothie, right? I have a green smoothie. Hopefully the color doesn't freak people out, but that's an easier way to get in fruits and vegetables. In here are cucumbers, spinach, avocado, kiwi, and some almond milk, or you can put whatever liquid that you want. It's a very easy way. Moving on, people tend to eat oatmeal in the morning. So oatmeal by itself won't really fill you up. So ways to add in color, like I said, what I like to keep on hand are these shredded vegetables as well as fruit. So what I would like to add to them is just like some shredded apples and some shredded carrots. And I know you're wondering who adds shredded carrots to oatmeal. If you've never had it, I encourage you to try it. You never know, you might like it. And then also you can add some nuts to it to fill you up. It helps to keep you fueled throughout the morning as well as hungry. Now, I know sometimes parents are always wondering, well, what snacks should I make the children? If you have fruits and vegetables by itself, it's not going to fill them up. You have to combine it with other foods. So if you've ever had a parfait before, it really consists of fruits, vegetable, it could be fruits, normally a parfait, I'm sorry. It's yogurt, it's granola, and it's fruits that are in it. And so sometimes people don't want the granola because it has too much added sugar, but you can add fruits to it. You can add, you can add nuts or seeds as an alternative. I did have it, but I left it in the refrigerator, so I apologize for that. Another snack that you can make that I have that I don't know if you can really see, I try to use some tortillas as well, or tortilla chips, some hummus, and we have some colorful vegetables and carrots and an orange. Like having all this together is going to help really fuel your energy until it's time to eat. And so when you're creating a snack, I want you to think of ingredients that has fat, fiber, and protein, because this helps to fill you up. So in this case, we have the fiber coming from the fruits and the vegetables that help you full and keep you hydrated. And in your hummus, it's made of beans and have oils in there, which is a fat. So this is more filling than if you have fruits and vegetables together. Now, other ways to add in fruits and vegetables. I know people love sandwiches, burgers, hot dogs. Let me show you an easier way to add it to it. So right here, I just have a salmon burger. And so what I've added to it was a broccoli and carrot slaw, and I added some spinach to the bottom. It can be any leafy greens or vegetables that you want and whatever condiments. If you feel like this burger isn't enough to fill you up, that's why you keep a variety of textured vegetables on hand and or fruit. So I'm gonna make a quick salad. So I have spinach, I have arugula, which is a leafy vegetable. I have the slaw. And then, like I said, I always keep shredded apples on hand, not just for oatmeal or smoothies, but to make a salad. So if you keep all of these particular ingredients on hand and easy accessible, you can quickly put a meal on the table. And then for your children, for those that are at home learning virtually, they can go in the kitchen themselves and kind of put their own snacks and meal together and give parents a break. So I'm hoping that this gives you an idea of how to get in fruits and vegetables throughout the day, minimal prep time. You don't have to spend a lot of time chopping and cutting. If you get a variety of forms, you can minimize food waste and keep that money in your pocket. And I just encourage parents, teachers, who's ever instructing children on how to eat fruits and vegetables, just really teach them the impact that it has on their health so that they have a tangible reference when they're eating these foods, and they're more likely to eat them as they grow into older adults. So thank you for your time.
And thank you, Sadie. I was finding myself, like probably lots of other moms and grandmoms, I need to put you on video and send you to my grandkids. I've got a grandson that has no sense of that vegetable can be good. And thank you for presenting that to us. I want to hit pause for a moment. We've had some powerful speakers and we've had some quick updates. Christine, do we have some questions for Sadie or any of our previous speakers?
We have some questions for Angie, if she could come back on. And apparently there are people are really really liking the presentation, Angie, that you just gave, so thank you. And so one comment was, what are some good resources to look at to become more informed?
So there are actually, with the way I learned a lot about these things was when I attended Chicano Studies, which is now the Latino and Latin American Studies at Wayne State University. They have a ton of resources there. Also at Wayne State University is the Walter Reuther Library that has a lot of information about the history of what was going on in the Detroit Latino community during that time, because it was also intertwined with a lot of the labor movement. So those are a couple of places that I would start, but I have a whole list of books that I could share with folks if they're interested.
That would be great, Angie, and we could put it up on onepbs.org. That'd be amazing if you wouldn't mind putting that together. I think
Sure.
People would really enjoy that. And then the other question that we have is, how can one support Hispanic Heritage Month and be an advocate or an ally?
I think the first thing, just like for in the African American community, is really to educate yourself, because there's a lot of counter narrative that's very anti-immigrant and very hate-filled. So becoming educated, sharing that information with people that you know, and then speaking up and showing up as an ally is critically important, especially because we have a lot of very vulnerable people in our community who can't always show up at these things and be a voice. So being a voice for on behalf of them is always welcome. We always need allies.
Angie, thank you so much. It was such an awesome presentation. I literally could have listened to you for another hour. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We do have a question for Sadie. Sadie, two questions really. How can we eat healthy while on a budget? It's always a good one. It feels difficult sometimes.
Yeah, buying fruits and vegetables in season, always planning out your meals in advance, planning them around what you have in your cupboard so that you don't have to spend a lot of money at the grocery store. And like you say, there might be sales, but when fruits and vegetables are in season, you can expect the price to be a little bit lower. But if you want to stay within budget, it's really planning out your meals in advance so that you're not buying things that aren't going into that particular meal.
Just want to add, and we're going to try this in my house, is to buy in season and then freeze it.
Yes.
I'll report back if it actually works. And then the other question is, what are some healthy staples we should have at home?
Whole grain foods, if you're not gluten intolerant, it could be brown rice, it could be oatmeal, for example, or any like spaghetti or pasta. It's easy to put together a quick meal. Frozen and canned, right? Because you're going to minimize food waste. You can use them whenever you want. Whatever type of foods that you prefer to have on hand that's easy to quickly put a meal together. Is it canned tuna? Is it canned beans rather than dry beans? People just have to really consider the type of foods that they enjoy. And if it's easy to prepare them, keep those foods on hand, because then you have to wonder, what is it I'm going to eat? It's always going to be something that you absolutely enjoy and like. So definitely keep those items on hand.
Great. Thank you so much. This was really, really helpful. We do have one question for the schools. It's around how account day will work this year. And so we'll make sure that we get that question out. Jametta?
Yes, and thank you. And by the way, Sadie, I have my grapes for this session. So I'm eating light because I wanted to make sure that I could be agile for the next segment, which Dante Jones is going to take us through. Dante, are you with us?
I am. Welcome.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Audio's good?
Mm-hmm. Audio, video's good. Go for it.
Awesome. Yes. So I was listening in to all the nutritional, all the history, learning about myself, learning about nutrition. So my name is Dantes Just Jones. There's a little mad one on the side over there. I'm part of the Motor City Street Dance Academy, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit of my culture and, you know, to get you active. Hip hop was birthed out of oppression, and the reason why it it's just, I'm sorry, I'm just like a little caught up because I was listening to the history and everything that, you know, Latinos have gone through, African Americans have gone through, and I'm both. I'm actually both. So hearing it is just like, you know, this is one of the reasons why hip hop was created, to help fight these oppressions. So me delivering this knowledge to you is to help you cope with your circumstances. So some of the movements I'm going to teach you today is regular rhythm, musicality, get you comfortable with yourself and your body. But the first thing we're going to do is make sure you have appropriate space. If you can, make sure you got a little bit of water right there. And yeah. So one of the other first things we're going to do, we're going to get ourselves all on the same baseline. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 nice deep breaths to our core right here. And we want to breathe to our core because it's going to help produce serotonin, so we're nice and relaxed. If you breathe to your chest, you're going to produce adrenaline. It's going to get you hyped. We don't want to get there just yet, you know? So we're going to take 3 deep breaths. Follow after me. Fill the stomach. Ready? 1. 2. And 3. All right. So turn up my music here a little bit to get us grooving. Right now I'm going to do is a little simple 2-step. All you're going to do is do your best to follow after me. The principles and definition that we hold here in Detroit of hip hop is peace, love, unity, and having fun. I'm going to say that one more time. Peace, love, unity, and having fun. If you don't get these moves down 100%, that is totally fine. As long as you're having fun on the other side of that screen, it's all cool with me. Yes. So we're gonna work on our 2-step. I'm gonna turn up the audio here a little bit. So I'm gonna have 1. Peace, y'all.
Peace, love, unity, and have 1.
So when we step, our feet come together on that snare. All right, pretty easy, right? I'm gonna do this to the side so you can see what I'm doing here. Y'all listen to some Jay Dilla instrumentals, by the way. If you don't know who Jay Dilla is one of the best producers to ever live. He passed away in 2006, but his music touches the world still today. We'll do another 2-step over this way. Oh, and I don't know if I said it, but Dilla's from Detroit, you know. One more time, 2-step this way. Hey. All right, so I'm here. So now we're gonna do when our feet come together. I'm just gonna drop my level like this. Feet come together. Do it this way. Do it this way. Hey. This way. Hey. Step. All right. Now what we're gonna do is when our feet open up, like so. We're leaning forward. Like that. Boom. Wow. Hey. I'm gonna do it this way so you see the dimension. Boom. Forward. 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 Hey. Hey. So, back. Bam. Hey. All right. So now what we're gonna do, every time we take a step, we're gonna lower our level. This is what we call the patty duke in hip hop. You've probably seen this move done plenty of times if you ever watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So patty duke looks like this. Notice how each time I go down, I drop my level. Each time I step. 1, 2, down, down, right? 5, boom. Have fun with it. Have fun with it. Put it to the side. Nice. All right. How am I doing on time? I didn't even know what time we started. I can go a little bit more, for sure. All right, I'll give y'all a move called the tongue wop. Tongue wop looks like this. I'm gonna break it down for you. Right, it's just one side. So the foundation of that, or just the movement, is 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2, however you want to count it. First move, 1, and both heels right side, 2, 1 and 2, right? 1 and 2. Coming back on that snare. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So lower body doing this. Notice 1 and 2. Home position. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Right? So and there's different variations of that. We'll do a center tone wop, which is both heels going out opposite sides. So you do like a march. So right leg, 1 and 2 on that snare. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. I'll do it slow. 1 and goes out. Balance. 2. Read it again. 1 and 2. The center tone wop. Do it left side. Get the left leg up. 1. Both heels out. And bring it back. 2. Oh, come on, snare. 1 and 2. Do it slow one more time. 1 and 2. Yes. So when you're doing your center tone wop, it should look something like this. Oh yeah, upper body. What your upper body is doing is mimicking some of the same movement as your lower body, but you know, you getting silly with it, you having fun with it, right? As always. So when my heels go out, my hands can go out, or they can go this way, they can go up, they can go down. It's all on your own imagination and creativity, because that's what hip hop is here for. Hip hop is to bring you out of you, not anybody else. So 1 and 2. I did that before. 1 and 2.
All right, Dante, we feel your groove, brother. And I'm really hoping that people, families, youth, hopefully different generations were talking to each other and moving together, because you were doing some moves that are new and some things that really take some of us back. And it's like you said, it's about peace, love, and fun. Yes. So we may have some questions for you. I'm going to kick it back to Christine.
Well, we've asked, somebody has asked for your contact information. So are we allowed to share that, the contact information that we have, or is
info at Motor City SDA.
Thank you. I'm like, not sure if this is an appropriate question or not. Okay, so say that one more time so we can make sure that we get it out there.
Info at motorcitysda.com. If you got any questions regarding wanting to do private lessons, wanting to do bookings, wanting to bring us out, any sort of that, anything along them lines, performances, stuff like that. Hi, Christine.
Good.
Hey, Angie.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Mav, virtually. All right, Jametta, we're all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for putting it in the context that we should also be doing it with joy. And when we think about emotions like joy, it has to also ground us in our power to always be hopeful. And so when we think about hope, we have to think about what parents and community need. Hope starts here. And so we're going to close out the program almost by having the voices of our parents come before us. We're so delighted to welcome McKees Taylor and Elizabeth Gonzalez from Hope Starts Here. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. How is everybody?
We're wonderful.
We're here to talk about our 6 days with Hope Starts Here. We we encourage our children, we hug our children, we talk to our children, and we sing to our children. We read to our children, and we love to play with our children. This is very important right now, especially with this pandemic going on, and in our communities, that we really pay close attention with our children and make sure, we do our 6 days with our children. It's very important. I don't know. McKees, would you like to say something?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I would just like to encourage the parents that will you hug your kids? That is my favorite 6 a day, because right now we need it. We need a lot of hugs. We need a lot of love, and we need to encourage our kids to keep pushing through this hard time. We know that we're in a pandemic, but we don't have to be afraid of it. And we
McKees, we just lost you.
We sure did.
Okay. So a quick question. If parents want to reach out to you, Elizabeth, and others in McKees, how do they get in touch with the parents part of Hope Starts Here?
Oh, they can get in touch with us through Facebook, Instagram. We are on all platforms of media, but Hope Starts Here. We all have Champion of Hope. It is a lot of us out here that will do whatever you need us to do. We have personal numbers. If you can reach out and get to our Champion of Hope emails, we will gladly give you resources and help for everything you need. We still on the forefront doing this job.
We also can be communicated through also our local groups, like our Congress of Communities. We come out of their office with District 6. Right now, Congress of Communities also is having a fall festival. They are having a fundraiser. It's to help get updates on the fundraiser for the new COC Driven Community Center. It's going to be this weekend on Sunday. It's on St. Higwig, 4870 in Detroit, 48210. There's going to be family fun thing activities. It's all free. There's some things that we do as it's for our fundraiser. So it's pumpkin painting, photo booth, raffle prizes, cider and donuts. If you have any questions, you can call 313-914-5315. That's also with Hope Starts Here. We encourage everybody to do their part with our 6 a day with our children all the time, every day. There you go. Yep.
Thank you so much. Christine, I believe that we are at our time to start closing out, but sharing some good information that our community can use as we prepare ourselves to vote and to celebrate the power that we have to make change.
Thank you so much, Jametta, and thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you to each of you that joined us today. If your question wasn't answered, we will get the answer and post the answer and question next week on onedetroitpbs.org and on DPTV Facebook's page. We didn't get to the question around count day. We will make sure to get good information to you next week, and we will also talk about it next week on this town hall, because obviously it is different this year as many students are virtual. So count day is more, we're counting the whole month of October. So there is a difference this year, and we want to make sure that you all know exactly what those differences are. If you'd like regular updates from us, please fill out the form that's in the chat right now, or you can put your email or phone number in the chat, or you can text us that information, your email and phone number, to 313-288-2082. Again, that phone number is 313-288-2082. We always have a few asks at the end of each of our programs, so today is no different. The first ask is, please visit DetroitVotes2020.org and get registered. Get yourself to one of the early voting sites, and or send in your absentee ballot. Voting is one way that we can have our voice heard. And right now it is incredibly important that our voices are heard. And so please vote now. You can vote right now. So vote now if you can. If you can't vote right now, make sure that you have a plan, but please visit DetroitVotes2020.org. You can also attend Freaking Vote Friday, which is kicking off tomorrow. It's an event that's going to be every Friday from 2 to 4:30 at 3031 West Grand Boulevard. We'll have a DJ there and a food truck to get free food, and you can get registered to vote, and then you can vote on site at the clerk's office. So that address is the clerk's address, and we want to get everybody out voting as soon as they possibly can. You heard the information about Congress of Communities Fall Fiesta. Please make sure that you show up if you can. And again, it's from 2 to 4, and it's at 4870 St. Hedwig's. Also, the last ask is around the census. We know that we said last week that it would be done. You couldn't fill it out after the 30th, but we got a little more time. So the census is due on October the 5th. If you haven't filled your census out, please fill out your census. It will take you about 10 minutes, but those 10 minutes are going to determine how much money the city of Detroit gets for the next 10 years for things like Head Start. These are things that we use on a daily basis, so please make sure that you fill out your census. This town hall is truly a group effort. So before you go, we'd like all of our partners to turn on their videos. And we want to remind everybody to stay healthy, stay powerful, and stay strong. Cindy, can you say that in Spanish, please? Or Christina, Cindy's gone. Christina, could you say that in Spanish?
Manténgase saludable, manténgase fuerte y manténganse empoderados. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Christina. Everybody have a great rest of the week. We'll see you next week on Thursday.